to Not So Perfect.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Sam and Pat. It's good to be here.
I think you're going to be our first. Have we had anybody on that focuses on pre-relationship relationships?
I don't know that we've had anybody that only focuses on that.
Yeah, it's a question I get a lot because you hear relationship coaching and people say, I don't need relationship coaching. I'm single or I'm not in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so there might be some like confusion between relationship coaching or coaching in general and more counseling or therapy. But I think a lot of the work needs to be done before you're in a relationship so you can save yourself a lot of the headache. So
well, let's talk about one thing.
I just still thought of somebody that we had. The guy that specializes in over 40 dating.
Astley.
Yeah, Astley.
Yep. But
we did have one but he's really big more now into self-love. So he talks about the dating stuff, but he was more excited about self-love, which I think he feels like has carried all of his work further. So I loved interviewing him, but
you're giving spoilers out because that was going to be part of my questioning today, but
sorry, I didn't know that.
Oh, that's fine.
So I was going to say, name one thing that you do, whether it's, I don't know what it is, but name one thing that, so when somebody says, well, I don't need relationship coaching because I'm in a relationship, I'm not in a relationship, you can say, okay, great. But do you want to be, or is that something that you'd like to be? And obviously most people or a lot of people's next, I don't know what the percentage is, maybe you can help with that, but want to be in a relationship. And then you can ask the next question would be, well, is there anything else that you want to do that you don't think you need to learn about first? Like, let's say you want to be a baseball player.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I'm not a baseball player yet, so I don't need to learn how to play.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, another example I use is almost like running a marathon, right? You don't just decide or find yourself running a marathon. You have to train for it first. You have to practice. You have to learn your body. You have to learn the race. And so that's a common analogy, like relationships or marriage is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think that resonates with people when they ask me or when they say, I don't need coaching, I'm not in a relationship. So I will ask, like you said, do you want to be in one? And most of them say, of course, right? That's their goal. Some of them say, I'm kind of focusing on my career right now. I'm focusing on me. Surprisingly, those are the people that are in relationships in a couple of weeks because they're not really clear about what they want and when they want it. And that's something I found as well. The follow-up question is, if I get a chance to keep prodding and poking a little bit is, well, tell me about your last relationship. Why aren't you in that one? What happened? And one thing I began noticing, and if you look at my site, I try to focus on women a lot more.
I did see
because
that.
I think if we can get it right before relationships, we can save a lot of pain, heartache. I'm very familiar with it. I've caused it. I've seen it being caused. A lot of my clients complain about it and get hurt by it. And so learning from past relationships, whether there was a misunderstanding or you went into it not knowing what you wanted, I think it's very helpful to be clear in articulating that. A lot of people don't talk about why they broke up, or they'll talk about like an incident or a situation. It's usually deflecting blame. It's it's usually kind of making someone out to be a bad guy, or we just weren't a good fit. But to get really introspective, and I kind of ask some of those questions to get them thinking about what really happened and what have you done to avoid it happening the exact same way again.
Yeah. So we have a chapter in our book where we talk a little bit about that. In that there's a level of responsibility that you can accept basically in every single thing that happens to you in your life. And especially in relationships, and usually in relationships, that level of responsibility is at 50% or higher. I think it is anyway. So, I mean, even if like you take a really worst case scenario, somebody was cheating on you behind your back and, they were doing all these awful things, you probably knew and still enabled it at some point. Or if you really dig, get past the pain and the hurt and all of that, then maybe there was something else dysfunctional that caused the stray or whatever, you know what I mean? But there's a lot of there's a lot of things that you can look back on in a relationship and say, I think I did this wrong, and this wrong, or I didn't follow these cues, and I'm not doing that next time. I'm not taking that with me into my next relationship, is what we call it. So that's the baggage.
Super important. And if you don't like flip open that luggage and rifle through your baggage, you won't know what's in there, and you won't know what you're holding on to. Yep. And so the blame piece, especially in cheating or lying or being led on, it's very easy to kind of assign blame and make the other person a bad guy. But really, there were a lot of cues, a lot of miscommunications, a lot of signals that you could have picked up on that were probably easy enough to pick up on if you were clear about kind of your intentions and were listening out for clues in their intentions as well.
Yeah.
And so you use the cheating example. That typically doesn't just happen overnight.
Right.
Or it's not a random thing. It's situational. It's poor communication at home. It's some need for validation or affirmation. I see that a lot, and oftentimes it's hard to connect the dots between what really led you to stray, or what led you to cheat, or what led your partner to step out as well. So that's important work to do.
Yeah, that's deep work.
Yeah, it is, and that's in the longer term too, because sometimes in the shorter term, it's as simple as you knew it was a wolf, you let it through the door, you just were happy that it let you pet it sometimes.
You wanted attention or validation as opposed to like a lasting relationship. Yeah. So sometimes that's okay to want. Everyone doesn't want to get married next year or in their next relationship. They might want a little bit of practice or to date around. That's completely fine. I just ask you to be very clear about that when stating your intentions, or at least know it for yourself.
Yeah. Right? I have a friend who just recently got divorced too. I was giving that exact same advice to. I'm like, look, if you want to date around, great, but make sure you tell, because you're at the age now where a lot of the women you're going to be dating are going to be looking for somebody to settle down with. So just tell them up front, I'm gonna take some time to work on me. I like hanging out with you. I like having fun with you, but at the same time, I'm not ready to commit to anything right now. And you'll be amazed at how well that works.
Yeah, I think it does. Especially if you're clear that you just want to date around. So I ran into trouble with this exact scenario. So I've been divorced. I'm remarried. I got divorced 6 years ago. Recently remarried. Between those two events, I was in massive redemption mode, trying to date, trying to get something serious, trying to redeem myself in marriage, right? Oh my gosh, failed miserably. So bad. But it wasn't just bad for me. It was bad for the women I was dating, the women I was dating as well. So the tricky part about that was I really, really, really thought I wanted a serious relationship, and I found them. I found willing participants. It wasn't that hard. But what I really wanted was this validation that I was enough, this affirmation that I could be well behaved. I wanted the attention, the love, the affection. And at a certain point, I don't know what happens, but at some point in your relationship, it's like, okay. Or at some point in those relationships for me, it was like, okay, that's enough. Or, oh, if I'm gonna redeem myself, it needs to be more perfect than this. And we have problems. So I can't really stay because I need to find something more perfect so that it lasts, or so that it's better. And it was really unfortunate. And it's one of the reasons why I got into coaching, especially targeting women to help, because it's easy to be fooled by someone like me. I don't take pride in it, but I knew what to say because I genuinely believed it. I genuinely believed I wanted something long term. I wanted marriage, and quite frankly, I just wasn't ready for it.
Right.
It took a while to learn that, a lot of trial and error.
It's interesting that you want to coach women as opposed to men. Why is that? Is that because you feel like they're easier? I mean, my opinion is women are easier to coach. I don't know if that's true or not. But it is, and maybe it's also because they're seeking help and the men really aren't. The men don't really seem a problem. I don't know. Why women?
So you're spot on with those two. And I will reiterate your first because you said it first. I can now say it. Thank you for giving me permission. So I knew from when I was a teenager coaching girls 8, 9, or 10 and under basketball that girls are so willing to kind of look inward and kind of improve or get better. It's like this desire, right? They're very accepting of I see a way that I can get better. Let me try this. And I noticed that early on in basketball coaching. The other piece is I think women have a lot more to lose.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think in these relationships, from my experience, I know that there are a lot of women that can do damage as well. And there are a lot of men that get hurt in relationships. I'm not putting that, or I'm not discounting that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the way we've kind of defined long-term relationship, defined typical gender roles or relationship roles, I think women have to put themselves out there quicker. They are often more vulnerable earlier, and they are speaking their intentions more willingly. And because of that, they're a lot more vulnerable in my experience. So that's what I meant by
we're open.
Go ahead.
Because we're open and we're honest. We're probably more in touch with our feelings and what's really happening with us, and we're able to communicate that. And again, we're being very that's general,
actually
right?
The feeling thing is a fact. I mean, women definitely are more what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, there are men who are very in touch with their feminine side, and also because I don't consider being really in touch with your feelings more of a feminine sort of quality, but there are men who have that feminine side. So I don't want to lump all men together, but we're speaking in generalization.
No, but when we're talking about a business, basically the bottom line is that women are more coachable because
we're smarter and better.
More open to it. There's a lot of I can think about myself. I wasn't very coachable when I was young. I just wanted to learn everything myself. I wanted to do it myself, you know what I mean? And so I got a lot of advice when I was in my 20s that I didn't follow, or I listened to. I'm like, yeah, that's the way you did it, but I think I'm going to do it a little bit differently and probably do it better.
Yeah, we think we know the best way to do things.
Yeah.
And so what I've noticed with men, and I'll take myself for example, you could not have told me that I was doing anything wrong. I was treating these women like, I don't know, like princesses or like highly valued and queens and
priestesses.
It was very romantic, and I was very expressive. I was doing all the right things. And so it's very hard to tell or see through that, kind of peek behind the curtain. And you couldn't have told me that I was doing anything wrong. I would just blame it on incompatibility, or it didn't work out, or maybe something happened in the relationship that provided an easy out for me to escape. So I could blame it that way. It wasn't until, and I had to look on my bookshelf to get this book, and I wrote it down. I had an ex that this is kind of when it triggered for me. I had an ex that said, you know what? I think you're a narcissist. Whoa. And I was, yeah, I know. I think you're a narcissist. And she sends me a book, Scary Close by Donald Miller. And I was so offended that I still haven't read it. I had to go look at the title. I still haven't read it. This was years ago. And I didn't even crack the book. And so now, I should probably read it. I should probably see what it says. But she thought she was helping me be more self-aware. Now, after that, I got super self-conscious, started doing all of this research into narcissism and attachment theory and all of these things. And I'm like, no, I'm not a narcissist. But it woke me up. Mm-hmm. It woke me up. And sometimes it takes that. It's very hard for most men, because not all men, you're completely right, Sam. For most men to arrive at that point where it says, I can be doing things better.
Mhm.
Um, I can be, I can improve in some way. And so, quite frankly, to not focus on men, I didn't want to have to sell the coaching idea and then
Convince them that
convince them that they
they
needed
need
it.
help. Yeah.
Right, that they are in pain or causing pain. So yeah, I didn't want to take that on just yet. And I have coached men. I have coached men, but I don't really drive towards it, or I don't target it. But sometimes men will approach me and say, "Hey, do you also teach men?" Because you can
That's
see on my
great.
site some of my experiences, and I love coaching them, because if they come to me, they're ready,
Yeah.
Mhm.
or at
Exactly.
least 60 to 80% ready, at least, right? And that we can work with. That we can work with, and then it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because of my experiences, I can relate to a lot of the things that they're feeling or going through,
Hmm.
or I can interpret or translate what they've heard from ex-girlfriends or women that they've dated. Then I'm like, oh, she was trying to tell you that, she didn't think that you were committed, or she just really wanted to spend time with you that day. And so they're like, oh, really? And so sometimes it's obvious things, but you miss it because you're looking from a very self-interested lens.
So did you, and this is an off, um, a little bit off topic question, but totally on topic in the
No
back of my
problem.
mind. Did
That's where the
so
best questions come from.
are you familiar at all with the book that we wrote?
I have seen it. I have not read it.
Okay, we'll send you a copy. But
Oh,
that
thank you so much,
but a lot
Pat.
of our story is basically about, um, you know, we were married for 10 years and then we took a year off where we both got out there and started dating again and went through the
I
whole
saw
blame
that.
game with each other and all of that type of a thing. So I kind of relate to where you are as far as talking to, on the coaching side of it and all, because we've been through it, which
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why I was going down that road. Never mind. Let's get back on topic. Tell
No,
us.
but I think no, but I think that's a great uh vignette, because it shows that you can be out of focus and then come back into focus together. It takes
Yeah.
two. It takes self-awareness, it takes introspection, communication, and it can be done,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so when I saw that, I immediately thought back to my divorce and said, that really was one of my biggest regrets at the time, is that I didn't try harder.
Hmm.
Um, and so I'm like, wow, this is a great example of trying, of putting the effort in. Now, I have no regrets. I'm extremely happy. But at that time, I remember thinking that. And so that piece of your story was really inspirational
Mhm.
and really eye-opening. And I think it would be that way for a lot of people, actually.
We
Yeah. And you and us, we have similar belief. You say that,
Mm,
people need coaching, they need help, they need they need to do some self development for relationships to work. That's part of,
mm.
I think, what you believe, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Got to do the work in the upfront.
You got to do
It's
some
got to be
work.
done, because how do we expect to, or we fail in a relationship? Let's just say it goes really, really bad. Why do we think it's going to go so much better in 3 months,
Yeah.
when we're still looking for the same type of guy or girl, when we're still looking for the same type of sensation or attraction? Why do we think it's going to be any different if we don't do anything with what we just learned or what we just experienced?
I really
So that
think
makes
Especially when
people,
me
you show up to your first date and you set your suitcase on the table. Hi.
your baggage. Yeah,
exactly.
well, I think that we all have this idea in our culture that we're looking for the one,
Mm,
the one, and you're not
yeah,
the one, and you're not the
mm,
one. And I think that the one is a bunch of bullshit. I mean, I don't
yeah,
think that you have any one partner. Like, if something happens to Patty, I mean, I think I could probably find somebody else to be happy with. But again, I go into
Doubtful.
those. Okay, maybe not. But
I'm not picking sides. I'm on this side of the screen.
But I do think that as long as I go into those relationships knowing that it takes work, and I'm sure there are boundaries, and I have some absolutely not okays, where I would say, yeah, we're not going to work out. But I do think that a lot of people give up too early because they think they need to go find the one. Like you were saying, this relationship isn't perfect enough. I need to find a more perfect one. And really what you're saying is this person isn't the right one.
Yeah.
Because we can't make this relationship perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the biggest lie we've been told by the media, movies, advertisements is that love is a feeling. And it's like these butterflies and this passion, attraction. It's not. Like,
it
love
starts
is
like
a lot harder
that.
than that.
Yeah,
It can start like that.
It starts like that sometimes.
But that's where you make the decision to say, this is kind of fading, or you're not perfect enough, or you haven't made enough changes for me, so I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
Well, that's when love needs to become a decision.
Yes.
Right. And you're deciding every day, every argument, every, goodbye kiss on your way to work, that you're going to be faithful, you're going to be interested, you're going to be committed. And it's a decision that you're constantly making over and over and over. And I think too many people expect it to just continue to be in the honeymoon phase. And I think if you work hard, it could, but it's not guaranteed. And it's not necessary. It's not required.
Well, scientifically speaking, it can't last much longer than a couple of years. There are
years is long
studied. Couple of years is like the
Yeah, it is.
longest it lasts, and then you start to go through the difficult part. So there are stages of love, or we talk about this there are different types of love too. So the Greeks had so many names for love. So in our book, we talk about the different kinds of love, and then we talk about these stages that that a relationship has to go through in order to survive, right? You have your in love, and then you have all this work where you're figuring yourself out, because this, your partner's it's a mirror that's constantly showing you who you are, but you're blaming them for everything that you see in yourself.
Yeah.
And so you have to get through that.
And you expect your partner to be perfect when you are not.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's two very imperfect people coming together, looking at each other like, why aren't you perfect? Why aren't you better?
Yeah.
No.
And all the expectations that we come into relationships with, like, that will destroy a relationship so quickly. And we still do it. In fact, a few days ago, Patty and I were arguing about we just bought this house and we're remodeling the house.
Well, congrats.
And but it's like and we're buying all new furniture because we sold everything and like traveled around for a year and then bought this house. So we have to buy all new furniture. We have to remodel. Anyway, it's a lot. And I finally looked at him and I was like, oh my God, because we're arguing. And I said, I have so many expectations of you right now. And I need to layer it down. We need to communicate about what those are and see if they're even realistic. Like we had to come up with this. We got to meet every morning now, have a talk about what we want to accomplish today with regard. We have our jobs and stuff, but like with the house, it's a whole new layer of stuff we're dealing with. So anyway.
Yeah.
And you're both working from home.
Yeah.
How is that?
We've been doing it for years.
We've
been
doing it for years. It's not bad. With some of the houses where we've been renting, the space is really small, so we're really close. But other than that,
our offices in this house, our workspaces in this house are actually farther apart than when we used to go into the office together of a company that we owned. So it's anyway.
Both
I would say that to recap everything we just said, I would say that love is definitely a feeling that's very, very strong in the beginning. And that feeling will come up again and again throughout your entire relationship. You'll get feelings of love, but
we would say in love.
Yeah. Well,
I like to distinguish love, the big love, from that feeling of being in love. And in our book, we call it eros. It's the fiery passion. Makes you crazy. It creates all these crazy chemicals in your brain.
Irrational.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah,
if
it's
you
almost like having OCD,
Yeah.
actually, they
if
say.
you
Yeah, it is.
if you are sitting around waiting for that, it's just after the beginning, it's not going to be there. It'll come in fleeting moments, but that's it. Fleeting moments. The rest
Right.
of the time, in my opinion, you called love. I think it's an expression. In other words, if you want love, you need to give love. If you express love, you'll likely 9 times out of 10 get love back. So
Yeah, very true. That's a great distinction. Yeah, thanks for adding that.
If love isn't a feeling, how he described it as an expression, what would you describe it as?
we just did.
Yeah, I kind of
said it's a
mentioned that it's
decision.
A
a
decision?
decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a decision to show the expression or to express it, right?
Yeah.
Like to
Yeah.
communicate in your partner's love language, to do
Yep.
things that resonate with how they want to receive love or how they interpret love, whatever that is to them. And so it's not just a decision. Ah, yes, I will love you today, or I will love you tonight, because what goes along with that? It's the expression, like Pat spoke about. It's the seeking out of that eros, that passionate love as well, and not allowing that to leave, but also not being solely dependent on that. And I think that's the important piece, because people decide to get married because we're so in love and
Yep.
everything's perfect and roses. And yeah, like it's a different
Then
ball
we
game.
wake up from the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you poop in front of each other? Well, you got
Ugh.
that to cross off the list.
Yeah, you got that. You go from like not farting in front of each other to
Yeah.
oop, I farted. like when did this happen?
Yeah.
Right?
I made
Yeah.
it.
I wish that would go back to the way it was before, to be honest.
We met and got married in 6 months, and I'm pretty sure I was able to hide my farts for 6 months because
Yeah.
she says now that it would have been a deal breaker. I know she's kidding.
It wouldn't have
Oh,
been a
she's
deal breaker.
kidding.
I
Yeah.
am, but you are smelly.
Anyway,
Mm,
so I
yeah,
want
I
to get
think my wife and I were we were 11 months. 11 months. Yeah. So I think if you're purposeful, if you're intentional, if you're focused around what you want and you clearly communicate that, I don't think it has to take long.
yeah. And we take each other for granted too in relationships after a few years. So like I'll set the intention sometimes. I want to be the most loving person in the room today. So it's an intention, a decision, and then it becomes an expression afterwards. But sometimes I'll catch myself like not being loving to the ones that are closest to me. It's like, well, I was talking about everybody else, but what you just said was rude. So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, that's the other trap that we kind of get into sometimes in relationships. But I'd love to hear a little more about Elliott the wolf and kind of what went wrong and then what you discovered about yourself. Because I would argue that you as a coach, whether you're helping men or women, and I would highly recommend any man that's ready to give you a call, because I know that you can help them based on what I've read so far. But is that you have to figure out your own baggage, your own, what you're not bringing to the table, what it is. So when you were talking about narcissism earlier, I mean, just meeting you right now, I wouldn't call you a narcissist. I think you're a little bit more like me, where you were seeking approval, right? Whether that's like me in college, I think the approval I was seeking, unfortunately, was probably that of my friends, and not the women I was dating. So I've been the wolf before, and I look back on that, and when I think about
The hundreds of women that you
when I
slept
think
with
about
one
my
night and all
daughters
them.
and
I
my
heard
daughters,
I heard this count. He said, okay, 100. Just 100. I remember that.
I think about my daughters and nieces and things like that, and running into somebody like me in college, and I'm like, oh my God. So there's probably another book in me somewhere where I'd love to write some kind of a manifesto for young people, but I don't know if anybody wants to listen to a 55-year-old guy tell a 21-year-old how to date.
Probably not.
But it's so interesting, because it's probably, that would be so valuable. But it's interesting how you kind of age out, or you are seen to be irrelevant, when really it's just different packaging on the same process
Yep.
over time. Yeah. So Elliott the wolf. Like I said, I was I was definitely seeking out female attention. I was seeking out relationships. Um, and I knew all of the right things to say. I was very
Mhm.
smooth. Um, and I thought I was doing it in a genuine way. This wasn't like the pickup artist where I was trying to see how many women that I could date in a week or have sex with or anything like that. It was, who can I connect with,
Mhm.
right? Um, but when I wasn't getting validation or affirmation, I would try to get them to change things, or I would say, "Oh, I love it when you do this," or um, "Can you change this little thing?" Um, and not kind of looking at the things I needed to change. I wasn't a stranger to being unfaithful. I wasn't a stranger to prioritizing my own time over our time. So traveling with friends when I knew I should have been at home, or going out with a girlfriend, um, kind of being two different versions of myself. This romantic side, and then this barely hanging on personal side, saying, is this going to work out? How long is this going to last? Can you even do this? And not trying to show any of that. So with all this inner turmoil going on, I'm just showing the smooth um, boyfriend that you're bragging about to your friends and family, and you're talking about how you're going to get married. Um, all the while, I'm kind of falling apart because I'm thinking it's not perfect enough, or we're not a good enough couple. Our chemistry isn't as strong as the last girlfriend or something like that. And so it was just very easy to kind of sneak into the sheepfold, so to speak, if I continue the analogy. But I didn't come off as a person to be avoided ever.
Did you
And
ever blame any or like end any relationships because you thought somebody was too clingy or wanted too
too
much from you?
clingy, uh, not at the beginning. I think that was very affirming at the
Mhm.
beginning. And it's funny that you asked that, because you kind of do. You want to take a step back after you've kind of gotten in close and you
Mhm.
know that this person likes you and they're in love. Then you kind of want to take a step back and distance and have your own time, your own space. Or maybe I shouldn't say my own time, my own space. And, you know, I would want to create that space through travel, or through hanging out with friends, or just being a little distant even when we're together. I was I was always very emotional, and I used to call it being in a funk,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of it was connected to this shame and guilt from, my divorce, from previous relationships, on just not feeling good enough. And so it was like two sides of me. Yeah. One presenting, I'm the perfect boyfriend, and the other like, how could I be anyone's boyfriend?
Mhm.
It was
Mm.
really tough to balance that. It was really tough to balance that. And the fact that I was so convincing, again, maybe want to get into coaching. I have two younger sisters. They've they've kind of been duped by
Mhm.
guys like this. I've seen it. It breaks my heart. And I'm the older brother, but there's still, you can be protective, but there's still only so much you can say, right? You have
Yeah.
to live your own life and learn your own lessons. And I don't want to be the brother that butts in too much and doesn't get told things anymore. So it's
Yeah.
always like this careful balance. But that really scared me to see how easy it could happen to my sisters, how
Mhm.
easy it could happen to my close friends that were female. Yeah,
So
I,
what do
I
you
wanted to do something about it.
so let's get into what you teach women. Like
Mm.
what
Before,
kinds of
how much time do we got? Can I interrupt you real quick, babe?
I don't
Because
know.
there's one bridge question I want to ask. We-
We have
Is it,
15 minutes.
oh, we got plenty of time.
Do you have a hard stop?
I don't.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. Well, because so you're recognizing these things about yourself, right? that there's this, you're two people effectively, right? So, and a lot of what I'm hearing is that because in my opinion, the way that you can have the most successful relationship is when you become a whole person and you bring that person into the relationship, right? So what steps did you take to become that whole person? How did you recognize that you needed to be the one to give yourself that approval and that affirmation, and then that was all that mattered?
Yeah, so therapy for
Mhm.
one. You know, some people have differing opinions on therapy. I think if you have a great therapist, it's fantastic to make connections that you haven't seen before.
Yep.
So comes highly recommended for me. So therapy, one. Um, two, taking time to be quiet and introspective, and then checking that with people that I trusted.
Mm.
And whether that's my sisters or whether that was close friends, that really helped me. That accountability, so to speak.
And this was like
The
finding your own truths and then bouncing them off
Yeah,
people. And
yeah. I'm an open book, especially after the divorce. After the shame subsided, I had to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
One, it was part of that validation piece. Like, you're okay, Elliot. Like, you're still an all right guy. Because I didn't feel like one. So I was talking about it a lot because I wanted that kind of like, there, you're totally cool. Um, the other piece, uh, my faith is really important to me.
mm-hmm.
And so I took a period of intentional singleness and just got really involved in church and really involved in the community there, and joined missions teams and led small groups, and I was just more present.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was trying to do is say, okay, how do I become sustained from myself? How do I become sustained from God and not have to seek validation from women? That I don't put relationships or marriage on a pedestal, that I don't idolize relationships. And that took a while. So
Mm-hmm.
I was purposely single. I know some people have done it for a very, very long time. I did it for a year. Um, and the next girl or the next woman that I dated is my wife now. And so one day it just kind of snapped and I said, I think I'm ready to date. I think I'm ready to love someone, because I had learned to love myself, to keep myself entertained,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and to learn ways to validate the things that I was doing and the things that I was feeling. I was giving myself permission to feel, one, and two, getting clear on what I wanted. So I thought I wanted to be married again,
Mm-hmm.
and two, why I wanted it. So it wasn't just about redemption this time. It was to, build a family. It was to be a leader. It was to be an example of God's love.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I had reasons. I had better reasons that I could clearly articulate. And so doing that work really, really helped me. It took a while, but it was instrumental. I wouldn't be here without that work.
Nice.
Mm.
You just said, you put relationships on a pedestal. Do you think we do that?
No. Why would I don't not off the top of my head. I mean, my first answer is no, because I'm not sure where you're going with the question,
I
or
don't
if you
know.
have
It
an
was just a
example.
curiosity. Well, because I
Mm.
feel like we think love's like the meaning of life, but it's
Mm.
it's the God love that you're talking about. And
Mm.
in my opinion, there's no better place to really learn that God love, like truly learn it.
Mm.
Um, well, you can learn it with your kids, but it takes so
Yeah.
much more effort with your partner that it feels,
You have to practice it under your own roof, starting with yourself,
yeah.
and then you know. And,
Anyway, I heard that and I was like, ooh, maybe I do that.
well, so
Well,
Yeah.
that might be a blind
I
spot for
think
me.
I can clarify that a little bit, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Elliot. But when he
Okay.
talks about putting a relationship on a pedestal, I think what he meant by that was that he previously sought out the relationship as something that he needed to fill himself up, as opposed to
The
becoming the
most
whole
important
person.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The most important thing. The ultimate validation. right?
Yeah.
And it was just up here. It was more important than anything else.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
guess I don't think that. We both take full responsibility for our own happiness and filling ourselves up. And so I guess that for us, both of us, I think self-love comes is above. If you're going to put it in a hierarchy, you have to have that self-love before you can
it
really,
comes first.
yeah,
Yeah.
before you can really love somebody else
And
deeply.
the beautiful part of that too is it there's an element, there's definitely an element of spirit there. So even if I was talking to somebody that's a full-on atheist or completely agnostic or whatever, it doesn't matter, because to me it's the same thing. You know what I mean? If you're filling yourself with love so that you can express love, it's the same thing as God's love. So
Or spirit or
yeah,
energy,
yeah,
high frequency energy is another way to describe it that people,
yeah. If you're
some
just a
people can relate to
scientist,
if they're not, religious.
but
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, people
anyways,
see it different ways, but you have to be full of love in order to pour out love.
yeah,
Yeah.
And it starts with yourself. And then you can't love something that you don't know. And so you have to learn yourself. You have to know yourself, what makes you tick,
yeah,
what drives you before you can ever love yourself.
And I think
Um,
that's not a you arrive kind of
mm,
journey, right? Knowing yourself,
yeah,
loving yourself.
exactly.
Like it is just the same with a
Yeah,
relationship, right? You are
yeah.
always learning,
Constantly
always
evolving.
constantly
Constantly
evolving.
evolving.
People are every moment we're changing, right? So it's
Yeah.
like that marathon. When you talk about the marathon, it's the marathon that doesn't end until somebody dies.
Yeah, yeah.
there's
It's a long
been
one.
there's
It's
been
a
little
long one.
things like 10 to 15 years, even 20 years into our relationship, where I look at myself and think, I've been telling myself this mantra my whole life. Like the first 10 years or 15 years of our marriage, I would told myself I was a horrible dancer and I hated dancing. And she loves to
Mhm.
dance. And so I'd never take her dancing or do any of that stuff. And then one day I
Yeah.
just looked at myself in the mirror and was like, you know what? I caught myself kind of dancing to a song that was playing in the
Yeah.
other room, and I was by myself, and I'm like, I'm a dancer now. That was it.
Yeah, just claim it. Just
We'll
say
just own
what you
it. I
are.
don't care what I look like out there. If it's something that's fun and she has fun doing it with me, then it doesn't really matter. So,
You're awesome.
and then the most recent one is I've told myself how much I hate cleaning our entire marriage. And
Oh, this happened like within the last month.
yeah,
Oh,
well,
wow. You're a cleaner now.
no, I had to narrow it down a little bit. I'm like,
He
I,
does floors.
yeah, I'm like, you know what?
Oh,
I don't really mind
okay.
vacuuming and I don't really mind mopping that much. And I don't mind
Hmm.
cleaning toilets. I just don't. So I'm
Okay.
like, you know what I am? I'm good at cleaning floors and toilets.
So he's the floor and
Yeah.
toilet guy, and you know how happy I am? I'm
Yeah,
so
those are the hardest parts. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting because we tell ourselves things and make claims all the time. And oftentimes they're negative
yeah.
because we count on other people to make positive claims about us, right? Like through humility or just wanting external
False
validation. So you
humility, maybe.
yeah, and so you have all of these negative things or not productive, not constructive things,
Yeah.
not enabling things that you say about yourself. So trying to turn that around. I'm working with someone now that, you know, is kind of struggling with mood disorder and connection and opening herself up. And she struggles with saying, I feel good today, or I am more emotionally healthy than I was yesterday. She struggles with that.
Mm-hmm.
And just saying the words out loud. And so trying to find incremental steps that can train her mind to accept things like that, to accept statements, positive statements like that. And even if it's not overwhelmingly foo-foo, like I am amazing, I am beautiful. No, I feel more stable today than I did yesterday. That was huge because the first time it wouldn't work. Something as simple as that
Yeah.
couldn't
Or
come out.
I'm moving, like something that's believable, right? These affirmations are so tricky. Like you could say that and be like, I didn't believe that. But if you say, "Hey, I'm moving towards more stability," there are the ways to
Yeah,
phrase things that, yeah, you can trick your brain into believing it.
And you
So
can even start
yeah,
with the very most simple one, which is I am me and I am okay. You know?
yeah. That's powerful.
that
Yeah.
is powerful.
That's powerful.
Is that
So
when you
Mm.
use that? So good.
mhm. Yeah, that's
Is
where
it
I'd
on a?
start.
It's on a post-it on the mirror.
if you
I'm
put
surprised you haven't noticed it.
if you put I'm an amazing, if I put I'm an amazing dancer, for example, on the post-it note, it may not necessarily, and then I'll probably tell myself, even though it came from the heart or whatever, and I believe it in that moment, my brain will sabotage it for the rest of the day, and that negative thought will still be bouncing around in there. Whereas if I just say I'm me and I'm okay, it doesn't matter what kind of a dancer I am.
Yeah.
So I might be able to make that next step.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
tell
it
us.
is.
Let's go back to my other question.
Yeah, tell us about
Tell us about
You've got 5 steps on your website, right?
I wanted to hear about your coaching with women and how you teach them not to be duped, because there's something else that I think you wrote to us about, which is, there's a lot of strong women who end up with terrible men, and I see that in a lot of my I'm friends with, I have a mastermind called Symmetry 7, and it's all successful, powerful women, and some of them have great relationships, but it dating for these women is really, really tough. I think men are intimidated by them. I mean, I remember actually when we were split up, dating was like a nightmare. I because I was very successful. I made a lot of money. I had a lot of power, and I'd meet these men, and they'd learn about me, and it would be like it would be. I don't know. It was terrible.
Men are largely insecure.
Yeah.
People are insecure, right? I mean,
and then the
we all
other
feel unworthy.
side of that coin, is we've been told that so many times men are insecure about things like salary or powerful women, that the women learn it too. So then they can kind of trick themselves into not putting their whole self out there.
And
right?
I'm watching friends of mine do that. They're downplaying themselves, like they're acting small. They're not being their full brightness, because they're worried they're going to chase off these guys. And I'm like, well, if your brightness is going to chase them off, fucking chase them off.
Yeah, you're not going to be dull forever, right? You're not going to be dull forever. And so that does everyone a disservice. So it can work both ways. And I think a lot of amazing women kind of get involved with less than amazing men because, one, it's what they're used to, right? Like, I don't know, it's very easy to, depending on what stage of life you're in, go for the bad boy or the wealthy person, or we used to say in school, the guy with swag, right? The guy that's really cool and smooth. And when you're kind of honing in on one quality like that, you're not being very holistic in what you're looking for and the type of qualities that are important to you. And so you find yourself in a relationship that's not a great fit for you. You were attracted to something, but then the rest of it, you could leave. And so, but once you're entangled, then you're beginning to adapt, right? And then it's women more than men, I feel, are more relational. So once a relationship has been fixed, they're more likely to try to mold themselves or try to mold the other to make the relationship work. So now you're in a relationship with someone that's not a great fit with you, but it's easier than being single and trying to find somebody else. Right. Depending on your age, you might feel like you don't have many options. I'm not talking about clocks or anything like that, but you say, a lot of good men are married, or a lot of, I'm not meeting anyone. It's hard to meet people. Well, you feel your options are limited and you're not holding yourself or your dating life to the same standards. I think it's very easy to be just tricked by people that look good on the outside and know what to say. And without knowing the questions to ask or the message behind the signal, it's very easy to be confused and wind up entertaining a guy that you really, really shouldn't be.
What are a couple key indicators that you can pick up on right away?
Yeah, or questions that you would be asking.
Yeah, I think you have to ask early on what they're looking for, and not just, I want a relationship. Like that's not enough. I think you have to ask what, and then you have to continue on with the why, right? You dig a little bit and you say why, because everyone doesn't want a relationship for the same reasons. Some people are going to say, I've known men that say, "Oh, I want to get married so I can have a family,"
Mm-hmm.
or I want to get married because my parents are still married or something. You just never know. And so if what's driving you isn't symmetrical to what's driving your potential partner, then there could be some disconnect there. So that's one way to ask questions. You might get a clear answer, "Oh, I don't want anything serious." When they say something you don't like, please believe them and stop trying to change their mind. Stop trying to
Amen.
change their mind. That's I so like I said, my faith is very important to me. And I met this girl. We went on a date. I blessed the food when the food came. I opened my eyes. She's staring back at me. And she says, "Oh, I'm not Christian or anything." Or, "No, I don't believe in God or anything. Is that going to be a problem?" And guess what I said?
No.
I said, "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it." I still remember that. And I'm like, why would I say that when I know it's really important to me and I know I can't have a future with this person? And I was entangled for about 6 months, and it was the most toxic relationship I've ever had from both sides. And so if they say something you don't like, if they kind of ding one of your deal breakers or non negotiables, believe them. Don't try to change it. Don't hope they'll change. Um, and I think if you hold yourself to that standard, or you keep your list kind of top of mind, I think that would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think a huge one on that is the kids thing, because there's people that want to get married and start a family,
Oh,
and there's other people that say, "Well, I don't really want kids," and you're like, "Well, we'll I'll convince
Cross
you."
that bridge when we would come to it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And here's the other thing. People will say, "I don't really want kids." That's for someone that really wants kids, that's enough of an open door. Like that door is ajar,
yeah,
right? It's like, okay, maybe I can convince them. Maybe if I bring them around my friends with kids, they'll fall in love, right?
hmm
Or, "Oh, I've seen them play with their nieces and nephews. They seem to like kids. I'm sure they'll want one." No, you have to ask, like, do you or don't you? And if you really think about it, a lot of people are afraid of offense or afraid that they're going to say the wrong things. But I think if if you're going to be with someone long term, if that's what you're looking for, then you can risk being straightforward.
hmm
Because if
Yeah.
they don't like you at your most straightforward, you're probably not a good match anyway.
yeah.
So just ask the question. What does that mean? "I don't really want kids." What is that? What does that mean? "I really want kids." So what are you saying? You know? And depending on where you are in your relationship or how many dates or what have you, like you can decide how to deliver that. But you have to be a lot more straightforward. That's women and men. That's kind of gender neutral. But I think it's important because a lot of people use the "we'll cross that bridge when we come to it," or "I hope they'll change."
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's
Or I can change them.
Well, a
or
lot of
I
people
can
don't say
change.
that out
Yes.
loud; they just think it.
They just think that.
Yeah,
I
that's a
think I
big
did
one.
that a lot when I was
Fortunately, it gave me
younger.
12 years to figure it out.
Mm. I think that's a big one. It is. We think we're a lot more capable of changing our partners than we are,
We're
and
not
we really
capable of
shouldn't
changing
be doing it.
anybody.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah,
change anybody. The
yeah,
only person you can ever change is yourself.
Well, for
yeah,
example,
and even
just
that's difficult.
And even that's it's a rough ride.
Yeah,
she's been trying for
yeah,
22 years to change me into
yeah. Just
being
dance
more
more.
helpful in cleaning,
Cleaning.
right?
Yep.
And
Uh,
until I made a decision
I've
in my
been
own
nagging.
head,
I've tried so many things and I'm just like,
mm,
yeah,
I give up.
until I made the decision in my own head, nothing really changed. I mean, I go through spurts. I'd be like, oh, fine, I'll do the dishes. But
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know the feeling. And I've been in a lot of relationships where I'm trying to change things. In my past marriage, my first marriage, I was trying to change things. She was
mhm.
trying to change things about me. Um, yeah, it was from both sides. It was just this discontentment with who we had found ourselves with. if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
there's sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, I thought marriage was a magic pill.
Yeah.
I thought if you make a commitment, then she'll have to change, right? And then
Yeah.
I'll change too. I'll act better too because of this commitment that we're making. Horrible logic.
Yeah.
Horrible
I know
logic.
people. Yep, I know people doing that.
Yeah.
Have done that, and
So I don't want anybody listening to think that change isn't going to happen, or that it is not good, because sometimes we look at things and we convince ourselves of things like I'm a terrible cleaner, and then whereas you can do a little introspection and say, okay, how is that serving me and my relationship right now? And there's very few positives that I can stack up there. So why am I going to continue to tell myself this over and over and over again for the rest of my life?
well, and it's just like, my disc. So first of all, there's what's the percentage of there are Gottman did all this research in long-term relationships, and there's a very high percentage of arguments that will never be resolved, right? You're always going to fight about them. You're always going to, you may not fight about them, but you're always going to disagree. And cleaning was just one of those things. And it came to the point where I'm like, I'm making myself miserable by trying to make him do something that he isn't going to do. So I have to change the way I think about that, the way I feel about that. And I was, it was every day, like I have to make this decision. And some days I was better than others. And some days I'd be like, God damn it, why can't you just do this?
Yeah. So I think that's a great point. And I'll clarify this change point, change good versus bad. I think going into a relationship, long-term or even dating, if you are requiring change to be content, if you are requiring your partner subconsciously, like, I will be happier when they do this, or I will not be happy until they do this, that's when I think it's more of a red flag.
100%.
Changing, improving, personal development, even asking your partner to change. Hey, can you clean more? Please, like, upgrade from the floor and toilets. Let's do like a shower or something. Like, if you can
I'm so happy
ask
with
that,
floor and toilets.
Now, if you ask that, I think that's fair game. You can ask for change. But if you don't get that change and you've kind of set all of your hopes on achieving that change, or your partner actually taking those steps, and you won't be happy without it, I think that's when we get in the danger zone.
Yeah. The change kind of we have to look at ourselves, look inward, decide if it's serving us, and then make the change rather than set the expectation that our partner will change.
Well, and really, how important is it, right? How important is it that Pat helps with the cleaning? For 24 years, he hasn't helped with the cleaning much, so it
24.
can't be that.
You just added 2.
What?
22.
Uh-oh.
We've been married 24 years.
Not yet.
Uh-oh. In 2 years.
Yeah. We've been together 24.
What are you talking about? We just celebrated our 24th wedding anniversary.
No, our first would have been
Claire's
97.
23. She just turned 23.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Well, I only remember the big ones.
I love this.
Something else, like, how important is this argument?
It's
not.
No.
Right? We'll get into that. Like, you can see us getting like, oh, why don't you know? How come you think we're... Anyway, it's funny, right? And you just have to look at all those situations and be like, is this important?
Yeah. What I've had to learn is, like, why am I arguing to be right?
Yes. Like, amen.
Yes.
So
and then,
bad.
Whether it resolves the issue or the conflict or not, I'm just arguing to be right. Yeah. And so I still struggle with that, and I have to catch myself sometimes.
We do too.
We do that all the time. Yeah. And that's one of the things with the remodel that I had to do. I had to step back and go, do I really give a shit if it's gray or black? Is it going to be the end of the world? What that looks like? If her and her sister think it looks good, then I just need to let that go. Yeah. And then there's times like right now where I just counted on my fingers, and she's right. It's 24.
Thank you. Say it again. I was right.
Well done. Well done. Same thing happens with my wife and I. I'm like, you were right. She's like, I know, I told you that.
Exactly. So let's go back to this duping thing. We are out of time, but we should, like, if we can I just want to get into that, like, just for a second. So we talked about, asking questions and being clear about what we want and trying to really figure out what the other person wants. And do you think that just by asking questions, you can avoid being duped by a smooth talker, by a handsome smooth talker such as yourself?
Oh goodness, that's not me anymore.
But you
I mean,
before.
still.
Before.
Oh, okay,
The
okay,
wolf, the
okay,
wolf,
great.
the wolf version.
Okay, the
Elliot.
wolf, the wolf.
You're
Wolf
still
Elliot.
handsome, Elliot. I mean,
Yes, you're still a
Thank
smooth
you, Pat.
talker. Like
Thank you.
let's
Thank you,
be
Sam.
clear. Yeah, you're very charming and handsome. So, you know,
Now you see the danger in this.
yeah.
It wasn't good. So yes, asking questions, being clear on what you want. I think also presenting the authentic version of yourself as well, because your authentic version will attract the right person. If you're putting on airs or
Mhm.
if you're downplaying yourself, then you are going to attract the person on that level or with those interests, right?
Mhm.
All it takes to get entangled is a little bit of attraction, and then you're off to the races. And it's hard to kind of break free from that. And again, depending on your intentions, depending on age, sometimes depending on where you are in life, you are quicker to kind of take a chance because you feel your options are dwindling, or you had a bad last relationship and you think this one will be better and you want to cover up that kind of failure in the background, push that to the past. Um, I think bringing in too much baggage from old relationships can also help you overlook red flags.
Hmm.
For instance, you can be so focused on someone that, let's say, was bad with money, lied to you about money, or borrowed and never paid back or stole from you. Then you find someone, they're good with money, they might be wealthy, or they give you some money, um, and you overlook. So you're pleased with those attributes, right? And you're like, I solved my problem. That was the biggest issue in my last relationship. This is great. Like, I figured this all out. Well, this can cause you to overlook a lot of other little niggling things that can also cause problems in your relationship, whatever those may be. Maybe cheating, maybe a poor communicator, maybe someone that's just not a good listener, things like that that you're not paying attention to.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And then I would say the last piece is just dating better. Like, I think
Let's
I
talk about
believe
dating better.
yeah, I think dates should be fun. I do. But I also think people they are too concerned with whether the other person likes them. And they are not focused enough on whether they like the other person. So they are more focused on the salad in their teeth than they are the salad in the other person's teeth, right? It's like, okay, am I showing my faults? Am I being attractive enough? Am I showing any issues or things that they might not like? You're
Did
not
I
bringing your
answer?
whole self.
They're selling and not buying.
Did I answer their
Yes.
Put in
question?
a weird metaphor.
Did I answer their question right? I hope that was a good answer rather than did I ask the right questions?
Yeah. And then not even, so I hope I answer their question right. And then not even listening to their answer because we're in our heads. And so that's one piece of dating better. It's you are gathering information. You already know whether you're attracted to them or not. You can see their face, you can hear their voice. You've probably texted or called. And so that's table stakes at this point, right? Whether they wear the blue shirt or the red, it really doesn't matter, right? It's asking the right questions, it's listening, it's looking to say, okay, would I want to have 10 more of these? Is this someone that I can see a partnership with, if that's what you're looking for? But being less kind of on a date, being less introspective and more kind of head on the swivel, what's going on? How are they treating servers, or how are they conducting themselves as they drive you around, or what questions do they ask you? What do they care about? That's a huge indication of what's important to them. If they're asking you about your favorite movie or the music you listen to, I agree. It's great to have shared interests, but it's not enough. So if you want something serious, ask more serious questions that can be thought provoking, that you can see if there's alignment there. Because so what, I listen to rap and you listen to jazz. Like, so what? Where did that get us? Right? Like, now we have to switch between two stations during a road trip. Like, so ask value added questions.
Yeah. Well, so I feel like sometimes, I mean, maybe that's, and maybe you do like throw this out there also, but that's a lot of pressure. I think another important thing on a date would be just asking yourself, am I being present and am I having fun?
Yeah, that's also important. Yeah, this comfortable piece, right? Do I feel like I'm being myself?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Am I less worried about this outcome, especially whether they like me or not? Because a first date is this big validation derby.
Mm-hmm.
It's, am I a likable person? So being present, presenting yourself the way you'd like to present yourself on your best day. But
I liked what you said about authenticity, being your authentic self.
Yeah. It's important. And you gave the great example from your mastermind or from your friends where, they're downplaying their accomplishments.
Small. Yeah.
Playing small. It's not serving them, and it's not serving the men that they're interested in either.
Yeah.
And so great point, Pat. Yeah, not to put too much pressure. And so there are conversation starters, but don't start your conversation with a conversation starter, but don't, continue and end your conversation with these kind of small questions that you leave the date and your friends ask, well, what did you all talk about? You say, oh, we talked about they put too much cheese on the lasagna, or or this is the music that we like, right? And they say, well, when will you see them again? What did you like about him? Oh, I liked his eyes, or he had the coolest shirt on, or things like that. It's like a little more substance. So what I will try to coach is there is a good balance, right? And I will say, okay, I listen for clues what went wrong in their last relationship. And then I pick one or two of those things and create softball questions that they can get used to asking, right? Softball questions related to those areas, to where they can, at least, if there were 3 issues in their past, 3 deal breakers, so to speak, that they can get some insight into a few of those areas and then have to talk to me, right? They have to bring those back. And if you haven't, then you didn't really do your due diligence on the date, right? So what's to say, it's worth another 2-3 hours of your time, oh, that's the other piece. Value your time better, or value your time more, rather. Like, yeah, you're not paying for dinner. Let's say you're being treated to dinner. It's still your time, it's your energy, it's your presence. Don't discount that. It's not free.
Yeah. Awesome. That's all good stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Give us your 1 to 2 minute shameless plug. Where can people get in touch with you? How could they learn more?
How could they hire you to coach them?
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. ElliottDavisCoaching.com is where you can find a lot more about what I've talked about today. This pre-relationship coaching. It's ElliottDavis.com, ElliottDavisCoaching.com. That Elliott is with 2 L's and 2 T's. Common mistake. 2 L's and 2 T's. Also on Instagram, _Elliott Davis. Also with 2 L's and 2 T's. What you'll see in a lot of my content is primarily in 3 areas, and this is how I like to coach. First is the she area, or focusing on the coachee when it's a female coachee. What are your values? What are your deal breakers, non-negotiables? What do you want? Who do you want it with? Why do you want it? So we're getting really introspective and trying to learn ourselves. The next piece is he. And we're talking about the guy. What signs did you miss in your last relationship? What are you looking for in a guy? What values should they have? how to interpret signals, where to find the guy that you're looking for, in what context and what environment, right? Um, and the last piece would be we. And this we is the coupleness, it's the foundation of a long lasting relationship. A lot of people don't know kind of the core pillars of a relationship to that's successful. And so we'll go through that. What does a successful relationship look like to you? What does it look like more traditionally? And how you can achieve that. And so we kind of progress through these three areas, and you'll get more details on my website. So go and check that out. Also on my website, last thing I'll say, Pat, because you referenced this, 5 powerful steps to building your best relationship. And that will take you from, again, looking into your values and what you want, all the way into that foundational piece. So it's almost like a free crash course, so to speak, a brief crash course of my coaching program. So I would love for you to connect with me on the site or on Instagram. That would be great.
Outstanding.
Awesome. Elliott, thank you so much for your time. You even mentioned that you're in Korea, South
I
Korea.
am.
So
Past 1 a.m.
past
there now.
1 a.m. now, and
Yeah, it
you're
is.
still looking bright-eyed and
It's
bushy-tailed, so good
it's
for
your
you.
morning. It's my morning. It's the same thing. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. We're getting a lot of rain here, by the way, and it's raining for like the next 10 days, and it makes it very wake up. So I hope that you all have like sunny weather, beautiful weather.
We need rain where we live.
Yeah, it's so
Really?
dry. It's over 100 degrees where we are and no rain. So we could we could take a little of your rain. We can pass you a little sun. That would be amazing.
We have some low bridges here, and they've been closed because they're flooded. They're underwater.
Man. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of rain.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, so Seoul is where I'm at. Good morning to you. Good morning to me. It's fine.
All right, Elliott. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam and Pat. I appreciate it.